Okay. Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a few moments while people join. Cool. Okay, so I think we'll get started then. So, firstly, just a quick introduction. So, I'm Grace Simmons. I'm Program Director at the Thornton Education Trust, or you may know us as TET. I'm a new recruit to TET, but I've been working in architecture and the built environment with children and young people in various ways over the past 10 years. And I just want to say, obviously, right from the start, I am not an expert in teaching. That's very much you. My role today is to share some ideas and examples and ways of thinking about the built environment that might support the amazing work you are kind of already doing and hopefully not add to your workload, but give you kind of more tools and resources. And hopefully this session is also quite timely for you as well, with obviously the new curriculum updates, which are focusing on things like life skills and critical thinking, problem solving, sustainability, which are all obviously very relevant to the built environment and to this session. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join. The aim of today's webinar is to support primary school teachers to bring themes of architecture and the built environment into your curriculum in ways that are creative, inspiring, and practical. So, firstly, a quick reminder about who we are. So, TET is a charity committed to inspiring children and young people to engage with the built environment. And our work is guided by three core principles. So, to explore, drive, and amplify. So, we investigate how architecture and the wider built environment addresses future challenges through research, through outreach and dialogue. We unite educators such as yourself with architects and young people in a community of practice, challenging how engagement is done and setting new standards to equip young people with skills and confidence. So the Imagine programme aims to weave those themes of architecture, urban design, and sort of wider built environment themes into the primary curriculum, and link to different subjects. And we obviously know architecture isn't going to become a subject taught at school, but it can be used as a lens kind of across subjects, helping children make those meaningful real world connections with the places around them, while also teaching them obviously subjects as geography, history, maths, art, and so on. So we know that many of you are already doing this brilliantly, and we want to obviously celebrate that, which is why we have created, as part of the Imagine programme, a new competition and awards programme that platforms really great teaching. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. And we'd obviously love to hear your perspective on awards categories and what would be great to highlight. So please feel free to add your sort of comments and questions using the Q&A button as we go sort of throughout the presentation, or obviously feel free to email me ideas and things that you have after the session. So we think that by gathering and sharing examples of inspiring practice and exploring creative teaching methods and celebrating educators who are leading the way, we hope that this will inspire and support other teachers to experiment and do the same. And another of our key objectives is that we want to build a supportive network of teachers who are passionate about creative place-based learning, a community where ideas, resources, and encouragement can be shared, no matter sort of where you're based. And we want to foster more collaboration also between teachers and built environment professionals to bring real-world projects, insight, and expertise into the classroom. So I'll just give a quick outline of what we'll be focusing on for the next kind of hour. First, we'll kind of just touch on some basics. So like why the built environment, what even is the built environment, and how you can kind of best utilize what's around you for learning, and some of the skills students will learn from it. Then we'll look at embedding critical and creative thinking through different types of activities, such as design challenges, problem solving, and exploration of place. And there will be time for some comments and questions at this point. So yeah, please do add these throughout using the Q&A button. And if you already have experience using elements of architecture to teach subjects, please do let us know and share this. And if you have any kind of questions or thoughts at all, we'd really love to hear them. Then we'll look through some kind of various examples, resources, and activities of how different organizations have developed those sort of in-class lesson plans, activities, and projects that incorporate the built environment across different subjects. So then I'll explain towards the end of the session, we'll explain a bit more about our Imagine program, the competition and awards, and then some time again for some more questions about the kind of program itself at the end. Okay, so let's get into it. So why the built environment? So I thought it would be useful. Oh, did I just skip a slide? Yeah. So yeah, I thought it would be useful to show you a survey I conducted as part of the Skills for Places report by NLA, in which children and young people were asked about their perceptions of the built environment. So as you can kind of see, the vast majority of students answered that they don't really know what the built environment is. And really, it's not, that's not their fault at all as an industry. I think we've done a pretty terrible job of explaining, what it is and who we are. Yeah, so those kind of answers, yeah, that from this report and survey may not be surprising, but let's just kind of go through them. So how familiar are you with the term built environment was a question they asked, and only 6% answered very familiar. Most young people were not so familiar or not at all. And then have you learnt about the built environment in school? So only 19% said yes there, with the real majority kind of saying no and are unsure. And only 5% said they are part of a built environment club or program, such as a sort of like architecture after schools club, for example. So as you can see just from that survey alone, there's obviously a lot of work to be done. So I thought we'd start with so what actually is the built environment? This is often a question I kind of, when I'm working with children, I just kind of start from this point. And often their sort of first response is, buildings. It might be their first sort of answer, but I think it's a really good kind of starting point to ask this question, because terminology is important, and the term built environment isn't really used outside of the industry very much. So it's a really nice point then to explain that it's everything we plan, design and build around us, from our homes and schools and hospitals to our streets and transport infrastructure, to also parks and public space. So I think it's good to talk obviously about the spaces in between buildings as much as the buildings themselves, and highlight that that's also part of the built environment. It's also, I think, a good opportunity to mention the jobs that create these places as well. So you can mention sort of the different roles in terms of planners, architects, engineers, surveyors, construction, and many others. But basically, it's about highlighting that the areas all around us offer rich, tangible contexts that bring learning to life across the curriculum, and can develop real world sort of skills, curiosity, and a sense of agency within the built environment. So why use the built environment in primary education? You already know this stuff, but I think it's good to remind ourselves and get back to basics, I think. So, of course, it's nothing new. Architecture and the built environment has been used as a learning resource for many years. This report pictured is from 2017, I think, by CABE, the Commission for Architecture and the Built Environment. And sadly, they don't exist anymore. And these things kind of have a tendency to come and go and disappear, which is why we're trying to kind of bring it all back together again as part of the Imagine program and kind of create this kind of resource hub of all of these things that have happened over the years. So so why use the built environment? So firstly, it's incredibly relatable. Children obviously experience the built environment daily in their life, as we all do, in their homes, their classrooms, in parks and streets. It's all around us, and we can apply sort of many abstract learning concepts to real world experiences. And it's multidisciplinary. It connects naturally, obviously, to a lot of subjects, to maths and science and geography, history, art and design and technology. And it also fosters sort of real world problem solving. So pupils can investigate those kind of real challenges like climate change, housing crisis, public transport, and think creatively also about kind of solutions. And then it promotes sustainability and kind of active participation and active citizenship. So it helps develop a deep understanding of how we can kind of all live more sustainably and inclusively. So children are natural designers, questioners, and problem solvers. So the built environment provides kind of a real, tangible, and complex context where they can apply a lot of their natural instincts. So it really challenges them to think creatively about how and why spaces are designed. It identifies problems and generates multiple solutions. It challenges them to consider different perspectives and the sort of needs of different users, to balance practical, aesthetic, and ethical considerations, and take creative risks and imagine better futures. So next, I'm going to go through a few ideas of how to embed critical and creative thinking through kind of just different activities and the skills that are then sort of developed as well. And then we'll go through some examples created by various built environment practitioners, and we'll have some time for some questions as well. So firstly, looking at kind of the ideas for design challenges. So if you've run a design challenge before, let us know a bit about it and what you did. We'd absolutely love to hear about it. So design-based learning tasks are perfect for encouraging creative thinking and problem solving. An example you could do from within the classroom and also like across the school is getting students to just reimagine their school building in a kind of new sustainable way, getting them to think about the specifics of what it could look like and how it would work and what materials they would use. You could look at some examples of sustainable architecture and also kind of introduce examples like green roofs and using natural resources and recycled building materials. A design challenge can really help children generate and refine new ideas, assess and evaluate their choices, and the pros and cons of that of their design and kind of justify their decision. And they can test different concepts. Encourages collaboration with their peers. If you're sort of working together in groups, and kind of develop presentation skills as well, which we all need. Other examples could be inventing a future home that uses renewable energy and adapts to climate change, or designing safer neighborhoods or high streets. So you can sort of ask questions about, what would make it safer, what would make it more fun, or what would make it greener and more inclusive. So that sort of thing. So next up, we'll look ideas for real world problem solving, and you can get pupils to identify kind of real issues in their environment and explore those kind of authentic solutions and encourage critical thinking. So this could be like, how accessible is your school for like a wheelchair user, or is there enough green space in your area, or what would make sort of walking or cycling to school safer? And you could carry out sort of observation walks and mapping exercises to do this, or conduct interviews with other students and staff or with their families, and collect and analyze data and have debates and group discussion. This helps develop skills such as prioritizing different people's needs, questioning assumptions, collecting data and evaluating evidence, considering multiple stakeholders, and ethical and systems thinking. And then for ideas on kind of exploration of place, you can encourage pupils to observe, interpret, and reflect on the spaces around them. Teach them to see everyday places through new eyes, not just as users, but as designers and change makers, to encourage curiosity and reflection. And activities can include sketching and mapping sort of favourite or unloved places in and around the school building, or produce photo diaries of their kind of local journeys, maybe like their journey into school, or explore and evaluate the streets around the area of the school. You can use here kind of like how questions. So like, how might we make this, street or alleyway feel safer? And how might we like add more nature to this area? Getting them to really question their surroundings. So by doing this, students will start to hopefully see those kind of usual familiar surroundings, hopefully in kind of like new and unfamiliar ways, and really start to question, why is it like this? What if we did this? And making connections and considering obviously the aesthetics of the place, the function, the kind of emotions that you feel as part of that place. A lot of that kind of questioning your everyday surroundings. So I'm just going to stop there for a second and just ask if you've kind of got any thoughts so far, any questions, if you've put any of that into practice already. Let's just bring up the Q&A. Yeah, we'd really like to hear kind of your thoughts on that so far, and what you've done. I think any of those activities can obviously be incorporated into particular subjects. So maths, for example, actually in a bit, we're going to look at some examples in a bit of like very fun, practical ways of learning those abstract concepts like geometry and shape, scale and measurement using architecture. But you can also kind of use the space around you in the classroom. So it's always good to get children up and moving around, I think, and using the room, using their kind of arm span or a hand or feet measurement to measure the classroom, measure objects in it, and could create a map or a scale plan drawing of the room, for example. We have a hand up, but I think if you could add it just to the Q&A. I'm not sure a webinar lets me actually talk to you, unfortunately, but if you add your question to the Q&A, we'll come to it. Thank you. So does it have to be a final project, as in could it be steps like area and I don't know what that word is, sorry, poetry. As in for the the Imagine programme, for the competition or awards, does it have to be a final project, do you mean, in terms of what you're submitting? We'll get to a bit more about the kind of awards programme and the competition a bit later on. Perimeter. I was just thinking of your examples today. Yeah. No, I think like it doesn't necessarily have to be a final project. It can just be lessons that you're, embedding every so often. It would be really interesting to hear kind of, yeah, how you're incorporating different architectural concepts into lots of lessons. So yeah, it doesn't have to be a final kind of see-through project. It can just be a lesson, for example. Yeah. Um, no problem. Just see if there's any more questions. Okay, maybe we'll move on for now. So, there's a question on, so yeah, how to assess like creative work, like design thinking. So, yeah, I think that's a great point. I think like rather than you're not really assessing artistic skill with design thinking. You're looking at thinking, the thinking that's gone into the design. So um, you may want to look at kind of like clear explanations of the choices that have been made in the design for the design challenge, and evidence of testing or like revising ideas, and the kind of how, why, what, who of the design, and how they've kind of considered users and different users' needs as well within their design thinking, and then also obviously how they've communicated the idea, like what medium have they used to communicate their idea best. Yeah. Cool, thank you for those. So, okay, we're now going to run through some of the examples from over the years that I've sort of been gathering lots of example activities from architects, built environment companies, various educators, kind of who have run, activities and things like that with primary school children sort of over the years. I've been trying to bring all of these together, and I'm going to send these round to all of you after the session using Padlet, which, if you're not familiar, it's essentially just like a digital bulletin board to share resources, and it will link to things as well. So I'm going to gather as much on there as possible, and send that out to everyone who's sort of joined the webinar. So let's look at the first example. So we'll take a look at an example from Broadway Mail-In. So in 2023, we ran our Architecture into Education Awards, which was really the kind of pilot for this Imagine program. So Broadway Mail-In Architects, they worked with year 5 students on a project designing a village of the future, which I think is something they were, students were, and the teacher was already looking at this concept in class. So it really fit and embedded itself with what they were doing. The aim of the collaboration was to provide children with the opportunity to explore important built environment themes, such as sustainability, resilience, and creating places that meet the needs of the whole community, while also encouraging them to kind of push the boundaries of their imagination. And so they created these printouts. Just got a few photos to share. So the students worked in groups and were assigned different roles, which is what the kind of the circles at the bottom are. So someone became the role of the architect, the engineer, the ecologist, the developer, and then someone was the local resident. And obviously, I think a bit about the function of these roles was explained to them at the start of the kind of workshop, and assigned these roles, and then they came up with ideas for their future village, and kind of thought about that user and what they would design or build, or think about that area, and they came up with a sort of future village and created these maps and drawings. And then you can see them presenting it to the rest of the class. So again, a really nice exercise in their presentation skills. And then they're kind of like, sketching and drawing onto the maps. And then here's the whole class with proudly sharing all of their ideas. Okay, next is an example produced by Caitlin Latimer Jones, looking particularly at geometry patterns and Islamic architecture at Key Stage 2 level. So the workshop brings architecture into the classroom to demonstrate how the design of buildings deeply connects with lots of subjects, so art, maths, science, geography, and more. It includes a pattern quiz, geometry, shapes and architecture, and an introduction to the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, geometric patterns, and designing and creating their own colourful patterns. So I've picked out a few slides to look at as part of this, but this is part of a kind of bigger presentation that I will share again in that Padlet. So first, looking at just like what is a pattern. So a pattern is a design where shapes, lines, and colors are repeated. It looks at regular and irregular shapes, more organic or geometric shapes, and natural and man-made shapes. And yeah, an example of what natural and man-made patterns are, looking at flowers, leaves, branches and feathers, and those kind of patterns that are found in nature, and then the sort of more man-made patterns made by humans in sort of artwork and materials and fabric and texture. Then it looks at, the different types of 2D shapes that exist. I think this was kind of like a test at first. They weren't sort of listed, and then there was a kind of, class put your hands up and say what they are, and they're put through there. Then 3D shapes, looking at all of those, and then where you can kind of spot those types of shapes in buildings across London, and also in buildings kind of like across the world. So, and asking them to kind of give their preference on, do they kind of prefer the more organic curve shapes, or do they prefer sort of more geometric straight lines and things like that. Then an introduction to the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, and a bit of detail about it. And then a few close-ups of some of the detailing of the building, looking at the kind of different shapes, which looks amazing. Adding in a few kind of stats, the diameter and the height, some more details and color combinations, and then looking at geometric patterns are, and how they're made up. And then asking students to kind of find if they can kind of see the repeated shapes and patterns in some of the tiling. So there it's kind of, squares and stars. And then in this one, it's hexagons and rectangles. And then they learn about the Katim pattern and they practice drawing it. So yeah, it gives an example there, and an activity of how to kind of to color it in and to draw their own geometric pattern. Next is a template by NLA to build your own neighborhood, a similar concept to the kind of Future Village by Broadway Malin, but kind of more around model making than sketching. And obviously this activity can be supported by using pictures of different buildings, introducing those different concepts of roads and transport and public space, and introduce topics of sustainable transport methods, to the use of green space and planting, step-free access, and accessibility, and why it's important for towns and cities to kind of cater for everyone's needs. With this activity, students work in small groups to come up with ideas of how to make their neighborhood more accessible and sustainable, and build kind of simple models using recycled materials or things like card and scissors and tape, and present their ideas back to the class. So this was the kind of grid template for Build Your Own Neighborhood, and some photos of them in action. Also looking at the model, they're the big scale models of London, and using that as inspiration for their own models and designs. and what they felt was important to include in their neighbourhood. Next is activities by Sculpture in the City. So they have created toolkits and worksheets for exploring the City of London, and they introduce sort of various techniques. So chapter 1 gives you kind of worksheets for exploring the skyline of the city using sketching and collage techniques. Chapter 2 introduces students to sculpture and public art with activities ranging from bingo to kind of creating hanging mobiles. And chapter 3 explores the city virtually. And I'm not going to show, obviously, each worksheet for each chapter, but there are links to these within each chapter. But here's an example of the worksheet for chapter 1, which is literally just the first page. There's lots of pages to this one, which is kind of like looking at spotting. It's a spotting landmarks quiz. Yeah, done in a really nice style. And then chapter 4 explores materials and scale. Chapter 5 explores sculpture through discussion and sketching, and chapter 6 looks at sculptures in 3D. And then 7 looks at mapping activities, and chapter 8 looks at designing and making your own sculpture. Yeah, and I really like their little drawings. It's really nice. Okay, next, the RIBA provide place-based resources to empower students to explore the world around them. So this has a focus on history and geography, and they say sort of placemaking is central to how our towns and cities are designed and built, and to the way they evolve in the past. Through history and geography at Key Stages 1 and 2, students can learn about the world and its people and begin to understand that placemaking relates to their locality as well as kind of regional, national, and kind of world geographies. Learning about the relationship between physical and human processes helps shape people's geographical understanding, and contextual knowledge of their own location can reinforce this and bring the curriculum into focus. So this is from their website. They have included lesson plans, which is really great, with teacher notes and a kind of downloadable presentation and activity booklets. So yeah, really accessible to use, that focus on exploring. They've got a different one for archives, for architecture, for exploring architecture, welcoming buildings, and then one on planning committees as well. So this is just an example of what these look like. That's the archives presentation, just the first page, with learning aims to be curious, to know more about the past, to ask perceptive questions and to think critically. Students are able to discuss what archives can tell us about the past, and students produce an object for the class archive. And then this is the architecture activity booklet. They describe their journey to school and are asked to notice kind of old and new buildings or big and small buildings, and how they can kind of differentiate between them. So yeah, just a nice activity booklet for them to kind of start looking at these concepts. I also wanted to share activities and resources by NSIAD, the National Society for Education in Art and Design, which you may already be familiar with. You probably are, but I just wanted to introduce it again and include it because they provide loads of activities for early years, Key Stage 1 and 2. So again, just an example of this on their website. So this is their teaching resource for early years. These were originally developed for parents, I think, during the pandemic, but are now used by teachers as inspiration for their own lesson planning. So yeah, you can see there's like lots of things there. So understanding the world, there's 39 units and 117 different lessons in there. So yeah, lots to have a look at. And then for Key Stage 1, they have lesson plans also for absolutely loads of subjects. So you've got geography there, 17 units, 128 lessons. Yeah, kind of lots to kind of have a look at, be inspired by and utilize. So yeah, just wanted to share those. And then here are the lessons for art and design, including an introduction to drawing, exploring shadows and tone and observational drawings. And then also for design and technology, they have lessons looking at kind of frame structures like bridges, rotary mechanisms for windmills, textiles, wheels and axes for vehicles, and then yeah, freestanding structures for playgrounds. So yeah, their website, if you haven't already seen it, is definitely worth checking out and exploring kind of all of their resources. And again, I'll link to all of these in the Padlet. Next, there's an example, a resource by Open City called The Architective's Quest. This encourages students to kind of explore their city or their local area with new eyes. So this is more one for kind of a bit about sort of getting out of the classroom, discovering shapes and scale and materials in different buildings, exploring eco-friendly concepts, and then it uses a trail to explore different buildings and asks students to examine building properties and uses. So this is what it looks like. It's a really big kind of fold out booklet. So this is just a kind of flat plan of it. But yeah, kind of, yeah, really, really nicely done. And it includes like a dictionary of architecture definitions, how to kind of spot shapes in buildings, and then a bit about scale as well. So looking at, yeah, understanding scale. And then on the other side of it, this what it, yeah, if you're able to kind of, I guess, get out and about, they have their trails there with different focuses on friendly buildings and different eco buildings and like a poetry section. So yeah, something for them to kind of take away and do, or do as a class if you can get out and about. Another example then from Open City was this was devised for year 4 to year 6 age groups, which I think there was lots of different schools that took part in this one. And so the project included direct experience of good design. They went on a site visit to buildings in London. They then did creative sort of in-class workshops with a design brief and model making, where they developed practical design skills and are encouraged to realize the full potential of their own ideas. Before the designing phase, I think students received maths lessons and activities linked to the national curriculum for Key Stage 2, which included understanding properties of shape, position, and movement. I think understanding measures and other skills, including problem solving, communication, and reasoning. And there was a competition linked to this with an awards and exhibition of student work. Here's again, I've just scanned in their booklet that they use to kind of show the work. I think all of this learning about kind of scale and shape, etc., was then put into practice as part of their design competition. So they did design a city home for city bees, birds, and bugs. So again, yeah, really looking at scale for this. And there were various different awards for things like research and development, environmentally friendly design, imaginative design, design through maths. So as you can see, the drawing that won the overall winner award is on that page to the right. And I think models were made as well. So I'll just kind of skip through these and show you. So yeah, that's the winner of the Research and Design Development Award, made a nice model. The Environmentally Friendly Design Award, Imaginative Design, Design Skills, looking at their kind of drawing and model making skills. And then some other examples there. Some really lovely, looks like really nice models that were made. Lots of inspiring different designs. And then, yeah, just some quotes there, I think, from students that took part. So I've learned how to sketch and draw a plan, measuring and how to use maths to design buildings. cool. So yeah, I'll leave it there for the examples. I've got lots of others to share with you through the Padlet, but hopefully, kind of some of those have inspired you to create your own project, or kind of given you ideas of how to incorporate architectural themes into lessons, or at the very least, pointed you in the direction of just some good resources that are out there. And I'd just like to finish off, by telling you about the competition and awards as part of the Imagine program. So the competition is named after Christina Smith, who was known as the Queen of Covent Garden. She played an essential role in protecting Covent Garden from demolition and ultimately improving and promoting the area into what it is today. So, inspired by Christina's lifelong work to breathe new life into an area of heritage, which she obviously did in Covent Garden, our Imagine competition is looking for projects that make a contemporary intervention into a heritage setting. So, to give you an example, this could be a classroom-based activity, but to design kind of like new tiles for a heritage building or something in your area, and that could tell a story of its history and the people and buildings of that time. So it could be a drawing, could be a collage, could be that tile making, or could be a poem or a story. But yeah, something that really brings in that looks at a heritage context but brings in something new. The idea is that you will be able to submit a new project if there is something you're working on already this year, or it could be an activity that you may have run in the past that had a big impact. And this could be tied to kind of any subject in the curriculum. So it doesn't have to be a new project. It could be something you've already done. So you could submit that. This is a competition for for teachers and practitioners, and the ideas and creativity you obviously spark in your students, and the winner will be rewarded with a small cash prize for you to use with your students and obviously for the school. So with the Padlet, I'll send around more details about the competition brief and your deadline to submit. But yeah, that won't be till June. So yeah, you've got a bit of time for that. And the Imagine Awards. So these are the first ever awards celebrating teachers for incorporating architectural concepts into their lessons. So these awards will shine a light on school-led projects, both past projects. Again, we want to really gather a lot of examples of innovative past projects that you've done. And yeah, those kind of teaching methods and activities, we want to kind of gather as many case studies and examples as possible. So we're not just looking at new projects, we're looking at kind of, at past projects as well. And we want to encourage collaboration between teachers and built environment professionals or practitioners and facilitators, and hopefully inspire more of that to happen, across different subjects in the curriculum. And you can submit your activity or project between January and June, and there will be a cash prize for the overall winner for that one as well. So here are the categories we are looking at including. These actually, they're not fully confirmed, but it would be great to get your feedback on these. While we're kind of still shaping the awards and the program for this. So we want to look at sustainability. So using the 6 Rs, which is rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle. And then Architecture 360, which looks at projects that are kind of cross curricular and multidisciplinary. We want to look at architecture through STEM learning, considering architecture and well-being as well, and then looking at a particular kind of early years project, a Key Stage 1 project, a Key Stage 2 project. And then we're thinking of including one category for secondary or like higher and further education, so that's more, I think there was a really great suggestion that this should be with how older students can work with more like primary or younger children. So yeah, that would be another category. And then we'd have one for collaborations with built environment professionals and practitioners, and a award for the best online resource as well, that's kind of open source, and like some of the ones that I've been showing you today. And then we'll have an award for Teacher of the Year, School of the Year, and then also Collaborator of the Year as well. So let us know what you think. Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a sec. And if there is something obviously you'd like to see featured, or you think there's something missing, please let us know. Really, really welcome feedback. So just a quick one on the timeline. So submissions will open for entries from Monday, the 12th of January. And we actually have our Inspire Future Generation Awards on the 15th of January. So again, another good time to launch that to all the right people. And you'll have until Friday, the 19th of June for the deadline. So hopefully, yeah, enough time to enter and take part. And then we'll have judging of everything that's submitted take place on Monday, the 29th of June. And then we'll have an award ceremony, which will take place on Thursday, the 9th of July, before the summer holidays take place. So hopefully those timings kind of, yeah, allow for you to kind of get involved and take part. And obviously, yeah, can use previous projects and things like this as well, because it will be the first time we're running this program. So we've now got time again for some of your thoughts and questions. So yeah, please use the Q&A button, and we'd love to hear some of your ideas. I'll just give you a moment. Okay, we've had a question on when the network will be set up. So yeah, that's a really good question. I think this is something that will take a bit of time to kind of really sort of galvanize as the program grows and develops. But we're aiming to set this up by March, as we kind of build more connections with schools and built environment professionals as well, who want to be engaged and involved with primary school teachers. So yeah, hopefully that will happen. Again, it's all kind of forming, so we need to work out what the kind of best format for that is. But yeah, we'll keep everyone in the loop about it, but it would be great for you to be involved in it. Thank you. All looks great. Thank you very much. Yeah, good to hear you are pleased with how it's kind of shaping up. Yeah, let us know if you have any other kind of thoughts and questions. There's a question on if there's a cost to take part. So no, like entry for the competition is free for schools. There will be kind of a small cost for collaborators who take part. But yeah, for schools, it's yeah, absolutely kind of free to take part and submit as many projects as possible. So yeah, again, we want to kind of gather as many as possible. So yeah, you can add as many submissions as possible. Okay, I think if there's no more, yeah, I'll bring the session to a close then. So thank you so much for joining today. I'm sure you're doing a lot of this work already, but I hope it's inspired you to bring in more of the built environment. Oh, sorry, we've got one more question. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hugh. Glad you enjoyed it. But yeah, I hope it's inspired you to bring in more of the built environment into classrooms, given you access to resources. And again, yeah, I'll follow up with a link to the Padlet. And we'd love for you to join this network as well. And I look forward to obviously, yeah, staying in touch and can't wait to see the kind of inspiring and innovative projects kind of you all come up with. So thanks for joining and bye for now.